and welcome. This is the Morning Drift. Thank you very much for joining us for this very important conversation. Now, if you have followed closely the education system in Kenya, there has been different reactions. Let's start with the 844 curriculum, where those of us who went through it pretty much ask, how is this helping me today? If you've been asking yourself that question and now you're a father or a mother, a parent or guardian whose child has now transitioned into the CBC, and again asking yourself about the complexities of the resources and where then this child would end up, this is the conversation that needs your input right now. Use the hashtag #TheMorningDrift as I bring in my panelists and experts on set. Of course, I'll be introducing them shortly. They came up with rather a different idea to re-strategizing. You must, of course, keenly note that it's not a matter of just strategizing your child's education, re-strategizing your child's education. And I know parents for sure, this very short holiday we are experiencing is going to be one of those, times that you really want to sit back, plan, check the policies, and then question yourself, now this is my input. What is the government's input? What are the teachers putting in together? What is the child's, responsibility? And what then is the future of the education in Kenya? Now, before I introduce my guests, who also are the people behind this particular article that will give us the introduction to this conversation, the 2021 KCSE results announcement sparked the usual celebratory media coverage, showing photo splashes of the top candidates on the front page of newspapers and reporting about how they accomplished their feats. Now, while the top scorers and their teachers deserve praise for their accolades, a wider discussion needs to be initiated about the hundreds of thousands of students who performed poorly in the KCSE. I know we have transitioned into the CBC, but this discussion is highly pertinent since the 2021 KCSE results are indicative of a longer-term trend. There has been no or rather significant improvement in learning outcomes over the last several years. Just to bring to your attention that I am reading an article by my guests who are already in studio, just to build on why it is important to talk about the Ko Academy that they now have founded together. Now, the Usawa Agenda first published its report entitled, "Are Our Children Learning?" in 2010, and it concluded that 2 out of 3 Class 2 children could not read a simple paragraph. Moreover, 20% of 6 to 16-year-old children could not do abstract mathematics at the same difficulty level as they were able to do in real-life mathematics. The picture remains grim more than 10 years later, and despite the government, the donor community, and parents investing significant resources into the education sector, as I, of course, end the first part, the 7th Learning Assessment Report published by Usawa assessed the ability of children to read and comprehend English and Kiswahili, as well as complete basic numeracy tasks set at grade 3 level. For English only, 40% of students that, of course, met the expectations of reading a grade 3 appropriate text, whereas 50% of learners met the expectation of solving a grade 3 appropriate problem. Given that learning gaps have already been revealed at the primary school level, one has to question the transition policy of 100% for the KCP candidates moving on to Form 1 and progressing to Form 4. Now, I'll come back to the CBC curriculum shortly, but allow me, because of that background, what I am reading is written by Mr. Miller here, of course, together with Dr. Rosa Ko, also founders of the Ko Academy. Besides that, you're also the founders of the Sochin Research Institute of Research, and I'm really glad that you've created time to be here so you can really shed light on the background that I've just read and what Ko Academy is doing differently to, of course, empower the common Kenyan into a productive future. Thank you for creating time to be here. I'll just allow you to say good morning or hello, and well, of course, what would be your opening remarks to this discussion, and then we can go to Dr. Rosa.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be on the show. I think what we see from the article is that education is immensely complex. There are many issues going on, and a lot of features of Kenya don't make it any easier to educate across a very diverse population segment. across very diverse geographies in Kenya. So there are many challenges that remain, and I think what needs to be addressed is how you produce effective learning outcomes.
Okay.
It's not about the number of hours you sit in class or how many exercises you memorize and how many tests you do. It's really about learning outcomes. And I think the Osawa Agenda report shows that there are some deficiencies.
Okay.
Despite kids spending long time in school, the results are not quite there. And there has been an improvement over the last, I think, 3 KCSE examinations, but I think there's a lot of room to grow.
All right, I like when he says positively, there's a lot of room to grow. But I don't know what then would be your opening remarks, Dr. Rosa Ko, as we begin this conversation.
Thank you for inviting us. And as you can see, this is a very timely but very complex issue. But we are very happy to start with a good discussion about this very complex and important issue. And I feel that the future is very positive. Although the data and a lot of things suggest that they tend to paint a negative picture, but I think there is a lot of things to do. It's a good thing that we have a lot of things to do, and then we can do it, and then we can make it a better future for all our children.
And when you say a better future for our children, I'm looking at a better future for the nation. As we are speaking, the conversation that just ended with my co-host Simba was on how then to incorporate youth, and give them employment as far as agriculture and food security and safe food production is concerned. So we're always talking about a lot of graduates brought out into the job market, but less employment, or pretty much unemployment on the rise. And I want to understand, before we continue with the background, because we're continuing to build on the current education system and what you're doing at Ko Academy. So you together, because this must have come out of the research institute, Sochin Institute of Research, and you identified a gap. Like you said, the outcome is one thing. So what was this research that came out? And then we can now start talking about Ko Academy and what then it brings in as solutions. What were the observations and the data that we probably have not heard of yet?
Right, so we have been in Kenya since 2013. And Kenya is actually the second longest place I've lived in my life. So we have observed the local market, we've talked to experts, we are educators ourselves. So we have worked in education at the university level, at the professional development level, and last year the Sochin Research Institute trained 517 youth in cybersecurity. It was a 2-year-long project. We had 12 training sessions in total, and we interacted with mainly 22 to maybe 30-year-olds here in Nairobi. And that was a very enriching experience because we had one-on-one conversations, and we had assessments. So a critical part of that project was to do a pre-training assessment where participants had to answer 12 questions around cybersecurity. And then we compared the outcome post-training with another assessment. And again, we could see across different segments how people learned.
Okay.
So whether a person had a high school certificate, what was their outcome in learning? Or whether they were educated at the undergraduate level or at the graduate level. And we could also analyze it by gender or by job experience and things like that. So we really had a very good sense of how people learn, what kind of scenarios you have to do. So generally, people learn better under learning scenarios than using theoretical questions. So we had incredible insights from this training, which we conducted through funding from the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi. And then the second part, I would say, in terms of data, was a study we did together with students from the London School of Economics. And we finished that study this year, and it's on the website. And it was an empirical study with key informant interviews. And we asked experts in Kenya, what were the problems in the education market? What is the role of EdTech or private solutions? What can the government do more? And it was about a 40-page report, and that was also very, very critical for our understanding of the market and the needs.
And I like when you're talking about the needs and what he is just, you're going to build on that. There were needs and there are needs in the education system right now as far as the outcome is concerned. And you being an educator, being in the field for a very long time and from your expertise and experience, as we're looking at the Kenyan education sector right now, what are the needs that we actually would say are urgent?
So I don't want to say that this is only a Kenyan needs because I taught with my PhD in political science, but at the same time, I'm trained in quantitative mathematical training. It gave me insight when I was teaching in the US, and I taught in Peru and also South Korea, and now I'm teaching in Kenya. And I mainly taught in the tertiary education sector.
Okay.
So in Korea, I taught graduate school students, mainly designing the models, quantitative models. And it's not just a Kenyan problem, in my opinion.
Okay.
When I looked at all these, my experiences, I learned that a lot of my students at the college level or at the graduate school level, they're all struggling with the fact that they were not trained properly at an earlier level. Like, so for instance, if I'm teaching quantitative mathematics for at the college level, they realize my high school training was not good enough. And when I invite high school students, gifted high school students to prepare them for the tertiary level, they tell me, oh, I'm not prepared for that at my middle school or the primary school level. So it just goes back to the very original education of K 1 to 12.
Yes.
So we invest more than 12 years in our primary and secondary. Secondary and middle school. Even some schools offer kindergarten, reception education. So we invest a lot of time in this pre-education before you go for university education. And I felt that there's a problem that maybe university is not the right answer for this educational goal.
All right.
First of all, and I need to intervene as education person at an earliest possible level, even at the primary school level, to see what's going on and how can I influence them to start thinking instead of focus on rote memorization. If they can have some kind of spatial understanding of the concepts and have a more deeper understanding of things,
Yes.
maybe it will help students to meet the challenges better. Yeah, so that's the understanding I had.
And I had a guest here last week on Tuesday who said you could go to school, but you need to educate yourself beyond the papers. Yeah, he was an author, and now I'm able to actually relate what you're saying. It's not a matter of how many hours you're actually in a school or how long you're in those particular institutions. And now I want to go into what we are saying, solution-focused conversations, the Core Academy. We've given a bit of a background and inspiration on why you came up with the Core Academy, but we want to understand more. What is Core Academy? Perhaps I'll start with Rosa on that. Just give us about what is Core Academy.
So Core, a lot of people ask me, why did you name it Core?
Yeah.
Let's get
that's your last
to
name?
a simple problem. So name is very important, as you know.
Yes.
They say any kind of business, any kind of entity, if you want to initiate it and get people's attention, name is very important. But they ask me, oh, so Core is your last name, isn't it? And are you Chinese? And no, I'm South Korean. But a lot of almost every South Koreans have their last name based on Chinese character.
Okay.
And Ko is my last name. In Chinese character, it means highest, esteem, highest pinnacle of your endeavor. So, so I put that name because every student and every parent, every teacher has aspiration for their children and their student that
Yes.
they reach the highest of their the goal, whether it's academic or career or any kind of field they pursue. So I felt that it's a very appropriate name for us because we want to provide ways that people can translate or transform the opportunity and the potential into actuality. So that's our main model, basically. Yeah.
I like that. And now we're talking about technology coming in real quick, digitalization. And the one thing that made us all awake or awaken in that sector is COVID. You know, we pretty much, I think the entire continent or the entire world was then forced to then embrace technology. And I'm really curious because there's a way that Ko Academy is working digitally to actually enhance these young people or young adults into productive human beings. And I want to understand how that is happening at Ko Academy.
Right, so COVID was a game changer, I think, for everybody.
Yes.
Whether we're talking about people working at home, doing video conferencing and being very effective actually at home, in some cases more effective than at the workplace, to digital learning. And in the beginning, I think in many schools struggled a bit. They caught up because they didn't have the infrastructure in place. But our experience is that schools caught up very fast and kids adapted very quickly. Maybe it wasn't always, the most pleasant experience.
Not at all.
Being on screen with 20 or 30 of your peers.
Yes.
But essentially it worked. And I think it opened up a thought process whereby people understand there can be a complement to the traditional classroom learning. And the Ko Academy is by no means trying to supplement the traditional school system. That's not possible.
Okay.
So we still really favor that people have in-class schooling. That's very important for social skills, for interaction with teachers, things like that. But I think the Ko Academy comes in as a complement to the existing structure. And what we try to do at the Ko Academy is one or two approaches. The one approach is to look at students and address their deficiencies.
Deficiencies.
Their deficiencies.
All right.
So as Dr. Ko was saying, many students unfortunately lack certain foundational skills. Maybe they didn't have the right teacher, or they weren't taught the right way. For whatever reason, some students never got the right numeracy skills in 4th or 5th grade. And then the problem compounds over time because nobody has time to go back and rectify that. So the first approach we have in the Ko Academy is to quickly assess students' weaknesses and then to have a tailored approach to address that deficiency as quickly as possible. Because without foundational skills, their learning path is blocked effectively. And the second approach is to look at children who are already ahead of the skill level and are maybe superstars in the subject, and then find out how we can take them even further. So in both cases, it's all about unlocking potential.
I like that.
I don't believe that an average child at school can't do basic numeracy literacy. I don't believe that the test results we saw earlier reflect potential.
All right.
And what we want to do is unlock that potential and help give that child a future. Because that ultimately, like you were saying earlier, translates into skills and jobs.
I like that. Unlocking potential that then translates into skills and jobs so that no Kenyan, no youth, no human being is termed unproductive based on probably a curriculum or system of education. I like that we started this conversation on a high. We continue to go deeper into what then is the solution. Parents, if there is something you can buy, let's talk in the comment section. But if it is something you also want to challenge, please feel free to ask questions as we come in. Our contacts are at the bottom of the screen. At the end of the day, we will also be going back to a bit of research as we look at, with these deficiencies, what is your child capable of doing that the system hasn't let you find out yet? This is The Morning Drift. We'll be right back after this very short breathe.